Welcome back to the Tundra, episode 22, presented by Nicolet Law. Before we get started here, John, and we got a great episode today. New defensive coordinator for the Packers. Packers legend, can we say? T.J. Lang joins the show.
Yeah.
Maybe some talk about a couple former Packers reuniting in Pittsburgh. We got a good one today. Before we get into it, like, comment, subscribe on our YouTube, The Tundra GB, on Instagram, at The Tundra GB, on X, at The Tundra GB. We appreciate all your support. All right, John. Jonathan Gannon reported to be the new Packers defensive coordinator. Packers haven't officially announced it yet, but that is what all the media reports are saying, including one from our Diana Rossini over at The Athletic. Who is Jonathan Gannon? I don't think he's an unknown per se like Jeff Hafley was when he took this job a couple years ago. Obviously, Gannon filling the role left by Hafley after he became the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. Gannon has been the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals the last 3 seasons. He did not call plays on defense. Before that, he was the defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles for 2 seasons. The second of those seasons, they went to the Super Bowl and lost to the Chiefs. Now, what was your initial reaction to the hiring? And, I don't think it's a name that people are going to be fired up about. It's not like a flashy name, especially because he was a quote-unquote failed head coach. But what's your initial reaction? Could this work for Matt LaFleur?
Yeah, I think it checks the box of keeping things familiar, right? 4-down defense, more of the bend but don't break style, contain offenses, eliminate explosive plays, and make them take the hard road. And Matt LaFleur knows exactly what that's like and how difficult that is. I can remember Matt a couple different halftimes talking about these defenses and the style that they pose and the difficulties for offenses to be able to put together 7, 10, 15 play drives and finish with touchdowns in order to win football games. And he spoke specifically about the Arizona Cardinals game this past year and the difficulties that defense, even though he wasn't calling the plays, that defense that he helped spearhead, the challenges that it brought. So Matt was familiar with his defense specifically because he's going against that defense. And then obviously the track record of calling plays in Philadelphia. And the bottom line is, hey, it comes down to the players. He had great players in Philadelphia. I'm sure he likes that players or the players that he has on the rosters here out of the defensive side of the football in Green Bay with Micah Parsons, Xavier McKinney, Edgerrin Cooper. You start looking at that and you start saying, okay, well, this probably can work. And it's one of those that our window's open now. So there's a lot of really young, talented coaches in the NFL that might not have been there, done that yet. You don't want them to have to earn their stripes as they're your defensive coordinator. This guy's experienced. I think he has like 18 years of coaching experience in the NFL. That's a long time. He's seen a lot, so he should have the experience.
Yeah, he's been a defensive backs coach for the Indianapolis Colts, assistant DBs coach for the Vikings. So his specialty is kind of the same specialty that Jeff Hafley brought to the Packers. We'll see what that means for the Packers secondary and their entire defense. Now, as you mentioned, and as I mentioned, Gannon didn't call plays in Arizona. The Cardinals' defensive ranks over Gannon's 3 seasons there. 30th over that span in points allowed per game, 28th in yards allowed per game. Disaster. Over his 2 seasons as Eagles defensive coordinator in 21 and 22, Gannon helped Philadelphia finish 11th in scoring defense and 3rd in points allowed per game. In 2022, the Eagles had 70 sacks, 3rd most ever in a single season. They were 1st in passing defense and tied for 4th in takeaways. They obviously made the Super Bowl. Personnel matters. I mean, he obviously gets some credit for that, but they had Fletcher Cox, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Hassan Reddick, Javon Hargrave, just a murderer's row of guys on the defensive line. And right now, that's one of the big questions for the Packers is where is that going to come on the defensive line, that consistent pressure rushing for their 2 best defensive linemen coming off major injuries. Micah Parsons off the ACL, Devontae Wyatt off the multiple leg injuries. Is Rashawn Gary going to be here? Can Jonathan Gannon get Lucas Van Ness or Barron Sorrell or Colin Oliver to the next level? Who else is going to step up on the interior? Because we know that group kind of lacked when Devontae Wyatt went down. He's got his hands full. And there are a lot of talented players on this defense, but also a lot of unanswered questions as we go into next season.
And if you look at defense and the best defenses, they're complementary. The secondary complements the defensive line complements the secondary. So in order to get that great pass rush, you got to have some guys on the outside that are sticky, right? That can stick to their men and really lock down those coverages. He's a secondary coach by nature. That's what he spent the majority of his time. So he should be able to get that secondary going in the right direction. I know Jeff Hafley was a secondary coach by nature also, but Jeff's gone. You lost him. So you got to fill that void. You got to fill that hole with another guy that can get the secondary playing at a high level to try and help this defensive line out. And then, Brian Gutekunst, what are you going to do to continue helping the defense? Are you going to go out and grab some players for the secondary so he can play more of a sticky style? Or are you going to revamp the defensive line with some more bodies, some more people that can come in here and go after the quarterback? A lot of interesting question marks, but the Packers finally got their guy as the DC.
It was interesting, I think, the timing of it, because Jim Leonhard is probably going to be a defensive coordinator either this next season or in the near future. Mm-hmm. Packers couldn't talk to him until today as we record this on Monday afternoon because the Denver Broncos, the team for which he's the assistant head coach and the defensive passing game coordinator, was in the AFC Championship game. So by rule, the Packers couldn't interview him until today. And they didn't wait to do that. They hired Jonathan Gannon. And what Rob Demovsky reported was that both Harbaugh brothers, Jim and John, with the Giants and the Chargers, were looking at Jonathan Gannon. So the Packers wanted to pounce and get him to Green Bay. So that just shows you how strongly Matt LaFleur felt about getting Jonathan Gannon, that he didn't want to wait for, a couple days to talk to Jim Leonhard and potentially lose Jonathan Gannon. So that to me is telling.
This is the tough part about getting a coach, right? Because it's not always just dependent on you interviewing people and picking from that right collection of people that you have interviewed. The timing matters in this thing. And if you have a guy that you like, even if there's a guy out there that you could potentially like better, if you have a guy that you like and you might lose that guy by wait, you can't wait. So, this is a guy that was going to be a defensive coordinator somewhere, whether here or somewhere else. And the Packers decided we're going to make him the offer to keep him here in Green Bay and ensure that we have our defensive coordinator figured out. Because, again, they interviewed Jim Leonhard in the past, and it didn't work out the last time that they interviewed him. There's no guarantees in this thing, so you got to take one when you have one.
You absolutely do. We'll see what Jonathan Gannon has in store for the Packers. What we have in store for you is a great lengthy chat with T.J. Lang, current Detroit Lions in-booth reporter, if you will, former Lions sideline reporter, former Green Bay Packers legend, Detroit Lion, John Kuhn's close friend more than anything. So stick with us right here on the Tundra. We got that coming up next.
Hey guys, John Kuhn here, and this episode of the Tundra podcast is sponsored by Nicolet Law. In football, we get instant replays with crystal clear visuals and slow motion breakdowns from every single angle. Unfortunately, after an accident, you don't get any of that. Most people wish they could show the insurance companies an instant replay, though. That's where Nicolet Law comes in. Their attorneys dig into every single detail and track down all the evidence that they can, building the closest thing in real life to an instant replay. When life hits you harder than a defensive lineman, you deserve a team that's ready to hit back. Nicolet Law helps injured Wisconsinites get back into the game. Call 1-855-NICOLET or go to nicoletlaw.com. Welcome back to the Tundra. We are joined now with my good friend, Super Bowl champion, former Green Bay Packer, former Detroit Lion, former Pro Bowler, T.J. Lang, future Packer Hall of Famer for sure. And TJ, just tell everybody what you're up to these days. I see you all the time, but maybe the fans don't.
Yeah, we're doing pretty much same as you during the season, John. I been working, just finished 5 years on the Detroit Lions radio broadcast. First 3 years spent on the sideline, and then last 2 years been in the booth as co-analyst up there with a couple of guys on the broadcast. So it's great, man. I mean, I enjoy doing it. I know you're still doing the sideline stuff for Green Bay there. It's just great being around the game still without, working 100 hours a week like some of these coaches and scouts are doing. So I've really enjoyed it, man. It gives me a feeling of still being a part, still being around, whether how little or big that is, around the game that, we love and played for so long. So I really enjoy that. And then once the season's over, man, I go into full dad mode. So it's,
Did you ever
going to hockey rinks and just full-time taxiing the kids around, but it's great.
Did you ever consider coaching or scouting? I mean, you got one of those minds that I'm sure Mike taking that job at Pittsburgh. I mean, hey, you could be an easy fit for him and his staff.
When I first retired, the coaches in Detroit wanted me to stay around. And Matt Patricia was going into a second year at that point. Our O-line coach, Jeff Davidson, was kind of like, hey, I don't really, plan on coaching too much longer. I think he had been coaching 25, 30 years. They wanted me to kind of stay around and be a part. And because my last year, I ended the last, I think, 6 games on IR with some neck and concussion issues. But I was always trying to be a part of it, right? Help with the game planning, help the guys out with some scouting, really dive into some of the pass rush stuff to maybe give the guys some notes and feel like I was still helping them out. And I think the coaches saw that and were like, man, like that could be pretty valuable. Let's see if we can get him to stay around on staff. However, I knew that was going to quickly turn into, hey, don't come in. It was kind of like, hey, come in whenever you want type of thing. Come in for an hour or 2 hours, once a week. I knew that was quickly going to turn into probably an everyday thing. And look, I'm sure you were the same. After 10 years of playing, yeah, I just needed time. You miss a lot of time with your family. You got to make a lot of sacrifices on holidays or whatever it is, or kids' birthdays. And, so I felt like I really needed to take some time to catch up on some of that missed time that I had, not only with my immediate family, my wife and kids, but, brothers, sisters, mom, everybody like that. And so there was an opportunity there. I think I've still had some opportunities, some coaches kind of, hey, you ever thought about getting into it? And I have thought about it. I think that I would enjoy it. But look, it's a massive commitment, John. And I mean, it's even more than the players, right? Players, you're going in from, 7 o'clock until, 4 or 5 o'clock every day. Coaches are there from 6 o'clock until, probably 10, 11 o'clock at night. And that's year round, right? These guys don't really take a ton of time off. I know they get a little bit of time in the off season, but I'm not ready to make that commitment yet, just because, I'm still having the 3 young kids and all the sports that they're playing. I enjoy coaching them. I enjoy taking them to all their games. That's not something that I think I'm willing to sacrifice yet.
What I want to know, TJ, and this is our first time meeting. I share an office at Lambeau with Bill Huber and Rob Domofsky, who you obviously know. But like John said, I started covering the team in 2019. My question is, do you guys as good friends share tidbits on sideline reporting? I know it's division rivals, but do you guys compare the tapes? Who's a better sideline radio guy?
That's pretty wild that Huber and Domofsky have an office at Lambeau.
Well, it's Domofsky's office. It's the ESPN office.
Everybody just steals the couch space from Domofsky.
You want to know something? So it's the ESPN office, and Jason Wilde, obviously, he has an office. They actually built new media offices, so we all have our own one in a different section.
Okay.
They're changing media auditorium and everything, but those guys are great.
Unique, I would think, yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, no kidding. But yeah, man, to answer your question, John, every time we play, every time the Lions and Packers, get ready to battle, we always normally I get on John's show, throughout the week, we kind of break it down, and I'll tell you, most of the conversations are trying to convince the other guy that your team is going to win. I mean, every game I'm walking in and I'm like, man, this is going to be a tough one for the Lions. I think Packers are going to get it. And on the flip side, you guys are rolling. Jared Goff's playing really well. You guys are going to get it, blah, 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 whatever it is. Neither of us are usually right. But one of us is usually right. But no, we definitely do. I mean, John and I have a lot of good conversations about, hey, talk to me about this guy who, maybe he was a young player that hasn't. I can't remember one of the rookie defensive linemen this year for the Packers. John, do you remember who that was? Started playing later in the season.
Brinson?
Yeah, maybe him. And I think it was, I didn't get to see him much week 1 when the Lions played up there. And, so it's players like that. Hey, John, talk to me about this guy. He looks like he's getting a lot more playing time, right? Looks like he's a really solid guy. And John does the same thing for me too. Ask, hey, what about these offensive linemen? And anything that we can pick up. Obviously, I'm not too dialed in, every single day with what's still going on in Green Bay. And same with John. I mean, he's not dialed in as much as I am with Detroit, but anything that we can share with each other to use on the broadcast, I think that, you'd definitely be stupid not to do that. So No, that's something that I enjoy, not only with John, but a lot of other guys around the league. A lot of former players, whether it's analyst roles, sideline roles, TV roles, whatever it may be. I think it's smart to reach out to them about maybe the team that they cover most because, you're always trying to pick things up just to add to the broadcast and add a different element. Something that, a lot of the listeners or viewers might not know that could definitely be beneficial.
John,
Teach, when
go
we
ahead.
were playing, we we used to sit in that hotel room the night before the game and try and predict what would happen when we would go out there and take the field the next day. And we felt like we had a pretty good finger on the pulse of being able to scout our own team and what these other teams were bringing to the table. But man, doing it from the sideline or doing it from practices and trying to predict. I mean, can you think of examples where you were dead right about a player that the Lions have drafted or dead wrong or vice versa?
Not so much about players, but like I can usually get a decent feel of like what the mood is going into a game. I wonder if you're the same. And I'm not around during the weekly stuff as much as I used to be, but when I listen to press conferences and I listen to the way that guys answer questions, like I can kind of get a good vibe. And then obviously, being on the sideline, an hour and a half before the game, going down there watching the guys through warmups, whatever it might be, like you can kind of feel it which way the game's going to go. And that's still a lot of questions, that I have, conversations I have with the guys that I do the radio with. It's like, what are you thinking today? How you feeling? I'm like, I feel pretty good, man. Like this team, they look locked in. Like they look urgent, right? I like the messaging coming out this week. And certainly I've been wrong sometimes, but when you have those strong feelings, it's like, I think the last one I had maybe was, um, the second half of the NFC Championship game, I think, John, you texted me at halftime and you're like, you've been doing this for 2 years. You're already going to the Super Bowl. And I'm like, dude, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know, man. This is like, they're going to have to hold on for dear life here in the second half, right? And I was kind of like hitting the pause button because I'm like, this is just such a young team and inexperienced. And certainly we remember what happened there, with San Fran coming back. But the year later, I think when the Rams came to Detroit, like there was just a buzz in the building. You know what I mean? The first time I think they had hosted a playoff game in 20 years, something like 30 years. And you could just kind of feel it, right? And I'm like, for some reason, I have a feeling the Lions are going to be able to pull this one off. And they did. But, I think when it comes to players, like I try not to judge too early, right? I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make. They'll watch rookies play, 1, 2, 3, 4 games, and then this is what type of player he's going to be. This is who he is, and this is just how his career is going to go. And to me, it's like I try to look for little incremental parts of, okay, when I was at a young player, a rookie, or maybe going to my second year, where did I make some of the biggest strides? And then if I can start seeing that with some players, I'm like, okay, I think they found a good one here. And I don't know, you're probably the exact same too.
TJ, before I ask about the penis cart, because John is obsessed with that thing. What do you think of just
I can't believe that thing's still around.
I can't either.
Actually, you know what? I'll ask about that right now. So it was because the Packers-Eagles Monday night game, Lane Johnson got carted off on it. Yeah. And John texts in our group chat with me, him, and Adam, our producer, and he said, we got to ask TJ about the penis cart. We got to have him on. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, what is that? Like, I had no idea what he was talking about. He said, we got some stories. So I'll just give you guys the floor. Why are you obsessed with that thing so much, John?
It used to be parked like in the hallway outside the training room and obviously used for that purpose. I mean, it's a long walk from the tunnel, from the field to get up to the locker room. So when players are hurt, they cart them around. But, for us being like the immature guys that we were, probably still are a little bit, you'd have a little bit, you have 20 minutes, 30 minutes of free time. And hey, let's go jump on the penis cart, go for a ride, man. And it was kind of a battle to see who could get there first. First, you had to make sure it was charged up because, Josh Sitton and I, one time, we found a path to go back like through the loading dock, like up an elevator to kind of like the corner of Lambeau Field where it's like, just the big ramps that keep going up to the top level. And we found out the thing wasn't charged and it died on us at the very top of the stadium. So that was an awkward conversation that we had to call somebody to come get us with. But
that's funny.
It was just, look, I mean, it's almost like a camaraderie thing, like just like a boredom breaker, right? Like training camp days, especially in training camp, man, when you're sitting there and hey, you might have 2 hours of nothing because the guys are in special teams meetings and it's like, okay, I can go get a workout and get some treatment. What am I going to do with my other time, right? Like you get bored pretty easy in there. And today's locker room is just so much different. Everybody's on their phone. Like we used to always find ways, whether it was like having fun with each other, riding around on the penis car, playing backgammon, playing cards, whatever it was. Like that was, I think that was the thing that made the group of guys we had so special because we all had that bond.
Tej, a lot of conversation, obviously, with Green Bay, maybe some with Detroit about what's it going to take to get over the hump and get to the next level. When you talk about the locker rooms and you talk about coaching staffs and changes and things being made there, what do you think was what made our 2010 team so special to be able to go through the playoffs, win 3 consecutive games on the road, and then finish it with a Super Bowl victory?
Yeah, I think back to that year, John, and I think like we were still a pretty young team. I know we had some vets on there, Cliffy and Charles and Driver and those guys and Pickett on the defensive side, but it felt like we had a pretty young team, and I think even going into that year, I had a different perspective from it because I didn't become a full-time starter until the year after. So I got to really more watch how the guys were preparing and everything, and it just always seemed so relaxed to me. You know what I mean? Like in a way, like where we didn't have a ton of pressure. It wasn't like, hey, everybody's expecting us to do this thing or it's going to be. We had years like that, right? 2014, we had years like that where we had all the pressure and couldn't find a way to get it done. But I think going back to that year was just like it was just like, hey, we're in the tournament, man. Let's go play. Let's go have fun and see what happens, right? Like we snuck in as the 6th seed. We knew we were going to have to go on the road against some tough opponents and I think we just got hot at the right time. And I think we were just a young team with some confidence. That's like, I don't care what they are saying or what the spread is or how much we're underdogs, but like, let's just go out there and play and have fun, man. And we got hot, right? Obviously that was kind of the coming out for Aaron Rodgers, right, to the world. Like, holy crap, man. Like this guy is like, he's going to be a good one. He's going to be a special one. Right. And I think, everything just clicked, man. I think didn't our defense have a takeaway in every playoff game? A pick.
Mm-hmm.
I think we had a pick 6, and obviously in Chicago, a pick 6. In Atlanta, right before halftime, another pick 6 in the Super Bowl, right? Like it just looked to me, being on the sideline and watching, like the guys are just playing loose and just having fun. And certainly, as we started to progress, it's a bummer that we can never get back there, but as we started to progress, I think, part of it, like, yeah, pressure does get to you a little bit, I mean, the urgency starts to pick up, like the expectations start to pick up. And for whatever reason, the next couple of years there, it's a shame, especially that 2014 team, how good we were and the players that we had that we couldn't get it back. But that's what stood out to me about that 2010 season.
TJ, what do you think of this NFC North landscape? It obviously is unique in that the Lions go from, number 1 seed and first to last in the division, but I don't think anyone would be surprised if they get back to first place next year. The Bears obviously make it to the divisional round. Can they keep up kind of their 1-score wins and takeaway heavy approach? Nobody knows if the Vikings have or maybe we do know if they have their quarterback. Like the Packers looked prime for the 1 seed before Micah gets hurt. What do you think of just how this division shapes up going into next year?
Yeah, it's tight. And I know the last couple of weeks were kind of iffy there, but I mean, when you look at, the bottom of the division compared to the top, I mean, 2 games separated, the 1st and the 4th seed, right? So it's awesome. I think like the Bears, I don't think people expected maybe that level of success year 1, but I think everybody kind of understood like, okay, Caleb Williams pretty good quarterback. Year 2, with maybe a little bit better offensive coach helping him, like clearly they took a step. Minnesota, I mean, how can you not regret what happened there with the quarterback situation? I mean, they won 14 games the year before, especially now you're watching what Sam Darnold's doing, right, going to the Super Bowl.
Thank goodness, right? Thank goodness.
Yeah, no kidding. But the players that they have, they're not far away from getting back, right? And I think that, with the Lions, and the Packers, like there was just times where you could, I know people don't say it's not an excuse, but listen, man, if you're losing key players at key positions, it is so difficult, especially late in the season to replace that productivity. And it's especially when it's a guy like Micah Parsons, and especially when you're looking at the Lions where, they were down their top 3 tight ends and their top like 3 safeties on defense. And that like it affected them, right? It affected both teams. So that's always going to be key number 1 is who can tend to, stay healthy and, you just be playing good football when December comes around, and hopefully that you can keep doing that going into playoffs. But we're going to see, man. I mean, obviously some new coaching changes there in Green Bay with Gannon coming in as the D coordinator. And oddly enough, the Lions hiring their offensive coordinator from
Right.
Jonathan Gannon's staff. So part of me wonders, like, and I don't think that's, the only reason why Gannon got the job, but I think when you look at it and say, okay, like, hey, he's got familiarity with Drew Petzing, who's going to be running the offense for Detroit. Bringing in Jonathan Gannon, who you've got to play these guys twice a year, and we expect the Lions and the Packers to, definitely be battling it out again next year. Like, I wonder if that went into the decision much at all either. But they're just going to have to. Hopefully, they get it right with both teams get it right with their coaching staff. Right. I think that was the one thing that really hurt, especially. I'm not that dialed in with the Green Bay side as much, but in Detroit, like their offense, it was just a clear slip, this year under John Morton from Ben Johnson. And Ben Johnson was very demanding and tough coach and details, a perfectionist, right? Everything needs to be perfect. And, they won 15 games with that. I know it's a tough way to play, but when you're winning football games, it's a fair trade-off. And then they lost that this year, and you could tell the details were just not there. The urgency wasn't the same as what it's been. So maybe, I don't know a lot about Drew Petzing, but, I think the Lions are hoping that he can come in and kind of get back to some of that detailed-oriented football.
A couple things I want to ask you about took place down in Chicago. First, I want to start NFC Championship game. You weren't starting, but you had to play a significant role. Do you remember that? Do you remember that situation on the sideline? Give us that story.
Dude, being Chad Clifton's backup was the most stressful job I've ever had. It was just every single play, get up, please, Cliffy, get up. And like he's 10 years in, 11 years in, he took him a little while to get up slowly from a couple plays. But man, the stress that I felt just being his backup was just like, no, I can't play left tackle against Julius Peppers with the Super Bowl on the line, dude. And sure as hell, I think it was after one of the extra points. Yeah,
after the first drive of the game.
I think it was after extra point too, and like where you don't really get hurt that much. I mean, back then it was different, but I just remember like I didn't even see him get hurt. I think he got a stinger, and I'm on the sideline. All of a sudden, like 10 people come up to me, and it's like, "Hey, you got this, buddy. You got this. Hey, come on, man, just go play." And I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about? Like what? Like who got hurt? What the hell?" And I'm like, "Please let it be like one of our guards because I don't know. It's sure as hell it was Cliffy." And I think I had to play, I think it was maybe 3 or 4 drives that I had to go out there and play left tackle in the NFC Championship game. And of course I was panicked, man. I was like, dude, like this is a lot of pressure, man. I don't want to mess this up. Heaven forbid, let up a sack, fumble, whatever it is, and ruin this game. I do remember one of the very first plays, Mike McCarthy. I'm like, dude, can you help me out a little bit? He calls a fake play action to the right. Me one-on-one backside with Julius Peppers in like a 7-step drop. And Julius ends up beating me late and smokes Aaron. I mean, pops him like right under the jaw. And
he was bleeding after that.
Oh, I think he was bleeding. I think he cut his lip a little bit. And I'm standing looking at Aaron, and he's laying on the ground like wincing in pain. And I just remember reaching down, grabbing him by the shoulder pads as hard as I could and yanking him to his feet. Because I was like, if I let him lay on the ground right here and wince, they're going to show this replay 15 times. What happened to Aaron Rodgers? Oh, my God, he got hurt. Like, at least in the back of my head, if I get him up really quick, maybe they're not going to show the replay or they're not going to say, oh, my gosh, Aaron Rodgers is bleeding or he's hurt. But that game to me was just like it was difficult, man, because the year before I actually started – my rookie year, I think I started 4 or 5 games at a couple at left tackle, a couple at right tackle, and then that Super Bowl year 2010, I didn't start any games. I had to come in and play a couple times when guys got banged up, but that for me was the first game action I had in a long time, and it was pressure, man. Thank God Cliffy came back. I think he had a stinger and got it loosened up. Maybe he took an appropriate amount of time off there, let me go and get my feet wet a little bit, but. Good thing he came back, man, because, it was so fun to watch guys like that, too. And I tell guys I was spoiled watching guys like him and even Tausch, when he came in before he got hurt. Watching those guys play was, you learn a lot from those guys.
I don't know if I ever told you this, but it was actually on Aaron Rodgers' bootleg touchdown that he got hurt on. They were telling me the whole week, hey, take this fake and jump over the pile. When I jumped over the pile, I kneed Cliffy right in the head, and that's how he got his stinger. So that's why he was out of that ball game. That's why you were playing.
Oh, you know what? That was so that play. You're talking about the one where Aaron pulled it and he ended up
Yes.
running it into the pylon. I was in a tight end on that play, and all week, Campy was yelling at me like, "Whatever you do not release downfield. You block this defensive end." And I'm like, "Done, no problem. Like it's a play action, whatever." We're in the huddle, and Aaron's calling the play, and he looks at me and he goes, "Hey, leak out late," and I'm like, "Oh shit!" I'm like, my coach told me under no circumstance do I go out. My quarterback's sitting here telling me like, no, go out. I'm like, what do I do? I panicked. I don't even think I touched my defensive end. I just immediately ran to the back of the end, trying to get a little over up. And for a second there, I thought he was going to throw me the ball because I was open, but he ended up diving in and scoring on that one. But yeah, that was definitely just wild memories, man. And I think even that game, like they were down to their third string quarterback, and when BJ Raji got that pick six, I think that's when it really hit all of us for the first time. Like, this is happening. Like, oh, this is really happening. What a special moment.
The next one from Chicago is everybody brings up in my mentions when the Packers are playing the Bears, that play that happened in 2013 down there, 4th and 8 from the 48-yard line when I cut Julius Peppers. But I try to tell people all the time when I'm doing speaking engagements, the real heroes on that play were you and Dietrich. You guys blocking three guys with two. Yeah, tell us what you remember on that, because the two of you blocked three guys on that play.
Yeah, and I think slowed down would be a better because at that point it was like one of those blitzes where you're like, oh, we don't get these quite often, but you got to take a man and a half, and it's difficult, man. You got to try to post here while posting there, and it's these guys are obviously blitzing with everything they got. I think that the fact that we had to do that might have actually helped the play, because I think it originally, and you did a hell of a job of kind of reading that going across on the backside and sealing Julius off, but I think just kind of the natural progression of I know I'm getting pressure from my right made Aaron kind of say I'm going to have to escape out to my left. And obviously that doesn't happen without you getting a big block on Julius. But that was another one of those plays where you're like, did that really just happen? Like, did that really just happen? And all the plays, I mean, that play was obviously incredible. But I wish I could remember like every single highlight play that Aaron made, or that we made on offense. But the funny thing is, and John, I know you attest to this too, like, I think we got spoiled because in games, Aaron would make such miraculous plays, and then you'd get asked about it after the game, like, whoa, did you see that throw? Oh my gosh, what was your viewpoint from it? And you're like, yeah, it's Aaron Rodgers. Like, we watch him do that every day in practice. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just on game day that he's doing this stuff. We get to watch it so you kind of get used to it almost. But looking back on it, and I'll do that during the offseason. I'll go back and kind of rewatch some of those games from, 10, 15 years ago and just kind of remind myself, like, oh my God, I totally forgot about that. That was ridiculous. But it was just such a unique group of guys that we had that were able to, make plays like that, right? And be smart enough to adjust and just find a way to make it work.
You talk about being spoiled. I watching quarterbacks now can be so hard in the NFL because we see that throw can be made. That throw can only be made by 2 or 3 people in the world, and we think that throw can be made all the time. I always wanted to know this. I never asked you though. After the Super Bowl, after we won, somehow the big picture that made its rounds were you and Briggs holding the newspaper that said Super Bowl champions. Yeah. And I want to know, how did you get a newspaper on the sideline right immediately after the Super Bowl and holding that standing on the back? How did you even get a newspaper on the sideline?
I have no idea. Like, well, because like I said, like I played special teams that game. So like right after the Super Bowl, it's mayhem, right? There's 1,000 people out there and they all want to get their on-field reporting done. And like, it's just crazy how many people are out there. And like, I'm not one of the guys that, people were coming up to and asking, but I honestly have no idea what happened. I think I did like a quick 30-second interview with like a Mexican, like Spanish Deportes type thing. And I think like, Spanish? I think they had, no, terrible, awful. I'm like, this is the worst idea ever. But I honestly have no idea. And then it's just somebody handed it to me and I'm holding it up. And like every time you go back and rewatch, some of those highlights from the Super Bowl, like that's always one of the pictures that's up there. I'm like, I have no idea where I got that from. I'm assuming the same people that gave me a hat. I don't even remember where the hats came from, right after you win the damn game either. But couple other funny stories too. Like, I I have a big picture in my house of me and Ryan Pickett dumping the Gatorade on Mike, and to my memory, like I was standing there by the sideline, and I think I was standing next to Donald Driver, who like got hurt during the game, couldn't finish. I saw the emotion on his face, and it was just like, this is so cool. And I think Ryan Pickett walked by to say something to Driver, and then Pickett grabbed me, and he's like, I need help. I need help. This thing's heavy. I need help. And I'm like, help with what? And he wanted me to help him with the Gatorade bath. So I'm like, okay, like I don't know how I ended up in that situation either, but Big Pick wanted some help and I had to help him. And then like even another weird one, John, is even when we get back on the buses, those buses that we took from the airport, going through Green Bay, I don't know how the trophy ended up with me, because I think I was on like the third bus, like all you like starters and stuff are on the first bus with the trophy. And I think right when I got off the bus, somebody handed me a trophy. So I have a picture of me standing in the parking lot, like holding it up to everybody. You think they want to see a backup O-line? Like they want to see like Aaron Rodgers or Jordy Nelson or Greg Jennings or somebody out there holding the trophy, not me. But I don't know, man. I found myself in some unique positions, some unique scenarios there when it came to for some reason being out in front of some of those situations.
TJ, I got one more for you before we get you out of here. What was it like playing with John Kuhn? For people, the new age Packer fans who see him as this media mogul here in town, I still think there are a lot of people who follow this team who know what he meant to the Green Bay Packers. How would you describe that?
Yeah, I mean, I think John, like the dynamic we had in the locker room, I don't think it's ever going to happen again. You know what I mean? I just don't think it's possible with just the new dynamic of today's football. John was certainly, we probably had a group of, I would call it 10 to 12 guys that, we were kind of the old school warrior mentality guys. Like, we know we're not going to get a bunch of the credit, but that's fine. We're just going to do the dirty work. And John was certainly a leader of that group. And the thing that I appreciated the most, I think, not only with John, but a lot of guys we had on those teams were just like the football IQ, the intellect that a lot of these guys had. Not challenging coaches, but always like digging in and asking why. Okay, why are we running this play? Why are we trying to attack the defense this way? Right? Like, I want to understand it. I'm not, and sometimes it could come off as, being arrogant to, a lot of coaches sometimes are, hey, I call the plays, you go run them, right? But when you can have dialogue like that and you really try to understand schematics and why we're trying to do certain things, like I think it helps you out, right? And I think that Aaron was another guy, Josh was another guy. I think I eventually worked my way into kind of being in that category of just really smart football players and really understanding situations, really understanding what's the best way to attack teams, where weaknesses are, where strengths are. John was certainly one of those guys that just behind the scenes, probably doesn't get enough credit, but and just the toughness, man, like just the toughness. I tell people all the time, like we were tough. We were tough. I know it's probably easy to look at us and say like maybe they were a bit more finesse team because we're throwing the ball a lot, and obviously when you got Aaron Rodgers, like how can you not? But like we had a tough football team, and not just on the field, but guys playing through injuries and guys, really feeling that friendship and brotherhood of like, I know he's banged up, man. Like he's going to give it his all, right? That's contagious to me. Now I don't want to miss this game because I know what these guys are going through. I think that was a lot of behind the scenes stuff too, with a lot of the guys that we had and John included. But I mean, those years were special, man. Like they were awesome. We had a lot of fun. We won a lot of football games. I know we only had the one Super Bowl to show for it, but the some of the stories that we probably can't tell. Those are the things that you remember too. And I used to love listening to John Bicker. I mean, I don't know if he's still that way with you, Matt.
He
but,
absolutely
it's
is.
Very hard for him to admit when he's wrong.
Yep.
He will go to the most obscure data to prove any point that he's trying to make, whether it's relevant or not. But some of those arguments and conversations that we used to have back in the day were just absolute epic. And watching John and Aaron go after each other, and neither one admitting, but both watching the stubbornness of both of them. Neither of them's going to admit they're wrong, and eventually it's going to boil over. But it turned out, man, it was a lot of fun. Those are a lot of great memories.
Yep, he is still like that. Well, TJ, I'm sure you two could tell stories for hours. We appreciate you coming on. We'll let you get back to the hockey rink. Really appreciate you coming on. For everyone else, stick with us. You're listening to The Tundra, presented by Nicolet Law. Welcome back to The Tundra, episode 22. This segment is brought to you by Potawatomi Sportsbook. Head to Potawatomi Casino Hotel for the big game on February 8th. Watch at the bar, attend a tailgate party, or reserve premium seating.
And yeah, the big game, February 8th. And where are you going to watch it? You can get that unrivaled experience at Potawatomi Casino Hotel Milwaukee. Watch the big game at 1100 Bar and Lounge, Rock and Brews, or at the small bar. Hey, reserve those premium seating. You're going to want it. It's beautiful inside the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Tickets and reservations are available starting January the 8th, a couple weeks ago already, and plenty of food and drink specials, including $10 off that 100-ounce beer tube. Who doesn't want one of those?
Probably me right now because it's 1:16 p.m. on a Monday, but you should go down there and get it for the big game.
Now's as good a time as any. 100 ounces, Matt. It might take you all day to drink it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right, John, a fascinating story developing in the NFL. Are Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers going to be back together in McCarthy's hometown of Pittsburgh? What was your reaction when the Pittsburgh Steelers, your hometown team, hired their hometown coach, Mike McCarthy, to be their head man in charge?
Well, I was ecstatic for Big Mike. And I know him being from the mean streets of Greenfield there and in Pittsburgh. This was a place that he always admired, the way that they do things. Their type of consistency and continuity and storied franchise, to be able to go there and be one of their head coaches means the world to him. And I think it's great that he gets to go put another chapter in his legacy as a head coach. Now, Green Bay, Dallas Cowboys, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, you can't speak on a better resume than that for the big guy. So I hope he has immense success out there. And I'd love to see a Pittsburgh Green Bay Packer reunion in a Super Bowl. That would be awesome.
Do we think Aaron's going to play? I know the reports out there from the national media were that the Steelers didn't make this hire to lure Rodgers back. And I know that was similar to what they said about Nathaniel Hackett when he became the Broncos head coach, that it wasn't because the Broncos were trying to trade for Aaron, essentially, before the whatever draft it was. I forget what year that was. I think it was after 21, 22, I forget. All the years blend together. But what's your sense, and I'm not asking from conversations with him, but what's your gut tell you about if Aaron Rodgers is going to play another season? And we know how his tenure ended with Mike McCarthy, but Aaron told me in 2022, before the Packers played the Cowboys and Rodgers faced McCarthy for the first time from opposing sidelines, he basically said, time heals all wounds. Not that we needed a lot of healing. Other reports would indicate otherwise based on how their tenure ended in 2018 and maybe before that. But do you think Aaron would come out of not come out of retirement, but avoid retirement to play for Mike again?
You know, that's the $1 million question. And quite frankly, this year, I always felt like was probably going to be Aaron's last year. You're not Aaron Rodgers, as the competitive as he is, and want to finish your career with those two miserable seasons with that organization in New York. No way you wanted to finish that way. He always held Mike Tomlin in very high regard. And in fact, many times it said Mike Tomlin was the reason that he went to go play in Pittsburgh this year, proved he could get back to the playoffs, proved he could still lead a football team. And I thought he played half decent for the majority of the season this year, and very capable of still being a starting quarterback and produce in the National Football League. So could Aaron Rodgers play again? Yes. Will he? I don't think he will. I think this was probably his last year.
That would be interesting to have Mike McCarthy and no Aaron Rodgers, but we can dream as people in the Packers universe about a reunion. I'm sure a lot of Packer fans would like to see that, especially since the Packers are not on the Steelers' schedule next year. So Mike McCarthy to Pittsburgh, that's one big coaching change. Coaching changes all across the NFL. We talked about Jonathan Gannon, obviously. Do we expect any other coaching changes on the Packers staff? I know Tom Pelissero reported that Adam Stenavich, the Packers offensive coordinator, was interviewing, I believe, for the Tennessee Titans offensive coordinator job. I think he knows Robert Saleh from their days in San Francisco together. Obviously, Saleh, well, Saleh was a consultant here, so they spent time around each other. There are obviously connections between Matt LaFleur and Robert Saleh. They were the best men in each other's weddings. So a potential landing spot for Stenavich there. Cliff Kingsbury also interviewing for that job. Let's say hypothetically Adam Stenavich gets that job. What do you think the Packers do? Do they promote Jason Vrabel to offensive coordinator? Do they then promote Sean Mannion to pass game coordinator? Do they promote Sean Mannion to offensive coordinator? What are the next dominoes to fall here, do you think?
Well, I don't know what the next domino is to fall, but I have a feeling there are going to be some moving pieces with the coaching staff in Green Bay as to why we didn't hear more news already. And the connections don't just sit with Robert Saleh. They sit down there in Miami with Jeff Hafley as well, who just spent 2 years with these guys. So defensive coaches could be pulled down to Miami as well to be higher positions down there within the coaching staff. I know this is true. The Green Bay Packers have been working feverishly since their season ended 2 Saturdays ago to fill out this staff and to figure out who is going to be what coach and at what rank and for how many years, and to try and mirror and marry all these things up. It's time consuming. Now they got their defensive coordinator now trying to firm up all the pieces that he may want to bring in versus the guys that are here currently or were here currently under Jeff Hafley before he took the head coaching job.
I did think it was interesting that Hafley, with Mannion, Vrabel, and Stenavich at his disposal, and I think I made the prediction on last week's show that Mannion would be his OC. He didn't take a single Packers coach. He took Bobby Slowick, who was the Dolphins senior passing game coordinator, former Texans offensive coordinator and play caller, I believe. So he's stuck in that tree. And I know people have said, and I think there's some truth to this, shows you what he thinks of the Packers coaches to some degree, right?
Possibly. But I see this as I want to get as many different views on things in a building as possible, right? If you just take a bunch of Green Bay Packers with you down there to Miami, you're just running Green Bay South. I want to have many different ideals and many different theologies when I'm creating
theologies.
An identity for my football team, whether that's on the offensive side, the defensive side, special teams, all of it. I want people that have seen a lot of different things so we can use the best from everywhere.
It'll definitely be interesting to watch the Miami Dolphins come to Lambeau next season. I also think Rich Bisaccia is going to stay. I forget if I mentioned this on last week's episode, but Tom Silverstein of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel had reported last offseason that Bisaccia's 2-year contract extension gave him 2025 and 2026. So that would indicate Bisaccia is under contract for this season. I anticipate him staying. If he wasn't, the Packers probably would have moved on already by now. So I know a lot of fans probably won't like that, but it doesn't seem that the Packers are going to change special teams coordinators. If anything, there might be some reshuffling on the offensive staff, especially if Stenavich gets a job. So that'll be the stuff to watch for. We'll have another episode next week. Guess what, John? The NFL Combine is 3 weeks away.
I got that same email you did about press
3 weeks
credentials.
away.
I was like, no, this season is a year-long gig, and we will be reporting on it for the full year.
We will. We'll be here every week, right here in Green Bay, Wisconsin, for both of us. We appreciate everyone for listening. For John, I'm Matt. We'll talk to you next time.